David Brucey here on 3 for All. This is 3 Frank Gambale Licks from 1995, and Frank Gambale is a complete legend of fusion and rock guitar, guitar education and instruction, and he's been on the scene for quite a while, and he's definitely been a very inspiring, guitarist for lots of people, thousands if not millions of players all over the world. And his educational, instructional material has definitely found, an audience back in the 80s and the 90s, and continues to find, an audience. And his economy and sweep picking techniques have been very inspiring and influential, for lots of guitarists all over the planet. And there's just something about Frank, in his music, and he can definitely play these melodic, kind of soft, passages and these quiet moments and ballads and stuff like that. And then he can turn around and just start rocking and shredding and just melt your face off with technique. And he's very fluid and smooth too. He does it in such a smooth way. There's only one Frank Gambale, Thunder from Down Under. So Frank's released something like 20 solo albums. He's been on the scene since like the mid to late 80s and just exploded, in guitar magazines and on tours and stuff like that, live performances, recordings, and also teaching, of course. But he's also worked, he worked with late great Chick Corea and Chick Corea's Electric Band. He was also a member of Vital Information, with Steve Smith from Journey fame. And he was also a member of Return to Forever for a little while. So he's worked with tons of people. And here's an image with some of the people he's worked with in case you're not that familiar with Frank Gambale. The licks in this lesson actually came from a clinic at MI out in Hollywood in 1995. And Frank used to teach at MI, or GIT. I think that was like in 1984 through 1986 or something like that. It was after he was a student and graduated. Taught there for a few years, but it was interesting to see this kind of return to MI and playing on that stage. And there's tons of great things during this clinic and performance. He's playing with a group. He talks, he does kind of break some things down, but they're just kind of performing and playing these live songs from some of his albums. Really great stuff. All the examples in this lesson revolve around an A harmonic minor bass tonality, and this first phrase is basically A harmonic minor, melodic phrase, something like this. One more time. So right there we're in A harmonic minor. A natural minor with a G sharp or a raised 7. So right there he's basically targeting the C, hammering onto that D, adds a little bit of vibrato. And then grab that C and go back to B. And right there grab this A on the D string, go to G sharp, and then hammer on back to that A. Grab that B back on the G string and hammer onto that C. And at the end, just grab this D sharp, which is a passing tone, and we're sliding into that note E, and then hit that E again. Like this. It's a pretty basic phrase, but I like the way that phrase is put together. It has a nice flow and kind of ring to it. Here's the footage, featuring that lick from 1995. Next example is an extended A harmonic minor melodic phrase, something like this. One more time. So it's a really challenging phrase, and we're starting on the G string here, and we're doing this kind of rapid, legato phrase from this A to B, back to the A, grabbing that G sharp, back to the A. And then you want to pick that A and B the second time through it. Like that. So it's that kind of busy, it's almost like a flamenco kind of lick. Like that. Now after you do that, you're going to grab the C note, and he does a pinch harmonic right there. And the secret spot right there is right, if you have a neck pickup, it's right past the neck pickup, right there. It's kind of the target, for that harmonic. And he starts doing this. And that's E, A, B to C right there, that melodic phrase. Do that twice in a row, and then do that E to A. And then he starts doing this really crafty bending idea where he's basically doing this. Like that. But he's not doing it that way. He's doing it with bends. So you want to bend this D up to E. And after you bend that up and release it, and you want to release that C note right there. Then shift back and grab this B note, bend that up a half step to C, and do the same thing. Like that. And then after you do that the bend and release, and then you go back to that A note, and grab this G right there on the D string with some vibrato, and then basically pull off this F sharp to E and grab D there on the A string with vibrato. Now put all that together and you got something like this. Next up, we've got a G sharp diminished 7 arpeggio idea that implies a harmonic minor. It's really cool, something like this. One more time. Now if you go a little bit slower, you can actually see, what's going on here. So we're shifting and sliding this G sharp, and that's where he starts that G sharp diminished 7 arpeggio, like this. Alright? As soon as you grab that G sharp there on the G string, that's where you're going to pick up this B, grab that B, go back to G sharp, and then you're going to basically hammer onto that A. And then when you kind of walk up, you're basically doing part of a scale right there. When you get to that E note, you want to grab this D on the B string and then bend that to E, and that's the end. Like that. So the first part, and the second part. Terrifying little phrase. I like those licks too, and of course Frank plays it just so smooth and effortless. And that's the hardest part about that lick, I think, is just getting that really smooth flow and that effortless sound that you can find in all of Frank's music. And it's so cool, but it's so hard to do. In case you're wondering how we use G sharp diminished 7 arpeggios, over A minor, and it sounded like A harmonic minor, and we're basically using a substitution. Now Frank Gambale, Scott Henderson, John Scofield, a lot of the jazz and fusion legends, they're masters at substitutions of chords, scales, arpeggios, you name it. And that's basically what's happening here. So we were playing with G sharp diminished 7, which, just think of those old Randy Rhoads, diminished arpeggio fingerings, that index and pinky. Just start here on G sharp. There's your G sharp, there's a B, there's D, and F natural. And those 4 notes just kind of repeat in that cycle. Now we're in A minor, technically. We were playing with A harmonic minor earlier. So basically, if you think of A minor, and then you start playing with this arpeggio over the top of it, you're really going to hear it over the 5 chord, which would be E7 or E major. So when you hear that kind of progression, it's obviously, it's kind of creating this A harmonic minor tonality. Diminished 7 arpeggios also kind of hit that tonality. It really sounds good over that E. But that's basically what's happening there. We're basically using, just parts of that G sharp is kind of related to that E. The B obviously is related to that E note. The D right there, part of E7. So there's basically basically 3 of the 4 notes we need for that E dominant 7 chord we had. We're just missing the root, you know, E. And then that next note F, you could think of that as just a passing tone in there. But then relating that back to harmonic minor, you know, you can see how those 2 worlds kind of collide. Here's a bonus lick from this live footage, and it's an extended version of what we just looked at. It's an extended G-sharp diminished 7 arpeggio idea implying A harmonic minor, and it's really cool, like this. One more time. So really slowly you can actually see it, maybe hear it a little bit clearer. But we're still flirting with those G-sharp diminished 7 arpeggios right here. Frank's famed sweeps. We're doing an upstroke sweep from that B, G sharp to that F down to that D note. So really slowly we're doing, you're going to do 3 upstrokes right there. Sweep, sweep, sweep. And after you do that sweep, that's where you're going to shift into the C note there on the 13th fret on the B string. Shift right here. So when you start with that shift right there, the first half is this. You know, the diminished arpeggio with that upstroke sweep. And then the second half is sliding with that middle finger into that C note there. So right there, sliding into that C, go back to B, and you're going to grab that A to G sharp, grab that B, and then grab G sharp, A, B, C, D, like this. Alright? And then right here, grab E and this G, and then you're going to shift up to that A, and then bend that A basically up a whole step to B. Like that. And if I do it again and just walk right through it, we're just going to go really slow. Really tough lick, so just work on trying to get that smooth flow and sound, which is so hard and it's very elusive, but in time you can really start to make it sound more like Frank Gambale. It's going to wrap this look at 3 Frank Gambale licks from 1995, and for those of you watching that are wondering why I didn't sweep more, because it is Frank Gambale, I'll just be honest, I can't sweep like Frank Gambale. That's like, once again, that top tier, upper, top of the mountain kind of playing. And I've worked on sweep picking, and I can do, small maneuvers. But when he starts doing that just crazy, like a video game, going berserk, it sounds like Mario Brothers or something, like, you're going down in the tunnels or whatever. But, and it's just so smooth and clean, and he's so relaxed, and he just barely moves his hand. But then when you hear the notes he's playing, I mean, they're just flying out like, thousands at a time. But there's just something about his style where I learned and picked up a lot of things. I have a lot of his books and educational material in my library, but it's just one of those, players that I've learned from, but it's really hard for me to emulate, his actual playing style, especially that just crazy, 5 and 6 string, sweeps and position shifts and all that stuff. I mean, that's definitely a challenge and something I'd like to work on more. But that's why I didn't sweep like crazy in this lesson, because I can't really play like Frank Gambale, when he's doing that stuff. So anyway, leave some feedback and comments. Please subscribe to my lessons, and I'll be back before you know it with more content and material. Thank you.